Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be. I'm your humble host for the topic for this evening, David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I absolutely do continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, and all of your relatives and relations will learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings in the universe. And so I'm hoping that this is late Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on where you are. That is, of course, Eastern um, Standard Time, EST, ESP, EST, Eastern Standard Time. But anyway, Travis, it's about time. A friend of mine was here visiting earlier. Alexander, how are you? I said, I said, there are times when I just I'm trying to explain to some folks about in a kind of polite way about ESP and the ether and that that crazy video I did the other night about, oh my goodness, that monstro invisibile, you know I have had nightmares about this, okay? But I was sitting here talking to him just a little bit ago, and I said, I said, there are times when I just feel like, even in the middle of the night, that I need to just flip the screen up and go live, even if I don't have a topic, you know, and chat with folks because it just seems to be out there in the ether. So there are folks who they'll shake their head up and down and go, "Yeah, okay, thanks, Mister Dave." That's kind of weird, uh, but I could kind of tell. I said, I even said something about there's probably out there somebody right now going, "Wonder when Dave's gonna, Hawkeye's gonna do a show tonight." And so here I am, early or late, depending on how you look at it. It's 2:38 in the morning. I was doing the headline at 2:20, so I was like thinking about y'all. But let me, uh, Alex and Travis. Okay, I thought I missed somebody. But anyway, uh, this really like strange. Oh, by the way, how y'all doing? But this really strange, obscure sentence kept going through my brain, and it was just like dogging me, like. And so it's sort of the title of the program, but it's not. It was circum, and but there is no word. It was circumstantial derivations. Okay. And it was like, wait, what the heck is this talking about? What is this obscurity? Okay. But it's in the natural order of things, but it's really out there in terms of the quantum, but that's also in the quantum, it's in the spiritual realm. And for many folks with all these new energies and so forth, I have scratched my head and wondered, is some of my brain patterns being not necessarily altered, but enhanced at times. I have, that crazy video I did the other night, which over the last couple of days in thinking about it, um, hey, Chloe, Deborah, how are you? And Susie Q, hey there. I'm here for y'all, gang. I mean, honestly, I love you and good to see you all just hang out. But this particular topic is really obscure in its derivations, okay, and derivatives. And I was like, now wait a minute. So, what my trying to find a word that was circumstantial, but there is no word. Um, Maybe I put it in wrong. I said circumstantial just now. Circumstantial evidence. So I was thinking in terms of circumstantial deviations. Now, okay, so enough about the title. But what do I mean in terms of shamanic or whatever. Okay, so sometimes we have to look at the minute, just in nature and things around us, just not to be anal about it or OCD, but to study something, to be observant. Okay. So, as a naturalist, I've been very observant of natural things over the years. Is everybody doing all right? Cheers, everybody. You've been up 40 minutes, 12:12 portal. Are we in 12:12? Okay. I have a tendency, no offense to anybody who believes it, I just have not seen substantial things on some of these dates. It's just another day to me. Every day could be a portal date, but anyway, if that's it, well then I'm here for that too. I'm all for it, don't get me wrong. But too many people trying to make predictions for these kinds of things, and the universe has got its own surprises. Kind of sort of what I mean about this particular strange subject for this morning. So everybody grab a bowl, grabs, I've got some milk here. I got some cookies. If I stop and dunk one and eat it, y'all just be patient. One could call it the munchies, early morning, late night munchies. So how you like? You can see my face now. I trimmed my beard way up. It was starting to look a little like, what? And I'd seen a picture of my face earlier, and I was like, the older I get, every once in a while, I should at least like, look at my profile, my face by cutting my beard off. Not that I'm handsome or anything. I kind of sometimes I feel like Jed Clampett or something, with my age and age lines, and I ain't worried about my skin and no. But so for circumstantial deviations or derivations or derivatives or so if we use the word deviation, all right, and kind of stick with that. Hey, batol, greetings, blessings, and etc. um I was thinking of, in terms of understanding obscure things, for example, like the topic I did the other night about invisible monsters. Okay. And the more I thought about it, it's like if any particular item is given enough attention or thought, it could actually, whether it has a physical value or not, it has a value in the quantum realm because it has been thought up. And so somebody did a video or something about what you think is, you can like make. And there's a very lot of truth in that. But we have to be careful in how we use, if we put our minds to it, we can get this done. Absolutely. Okay. 100% with that. But there are some things that people think that should like exist and they never come to fruition. But now there are things that I have thought of way long time ago that are actually happening, and things have happened, things that I designed and stuff talked about when I was a kid are now happening, right? So it's like, okay, so many of us believe that the answers are in the quantum or they're in the great mystery if we stick with Native American type sort of discussion. Um, but that in the great mystery, in the silence, in the hibernation with bear, um, the answers are all there for everything, for every question that may be asked. Okay. So if we kind of just sort of stick with that premise, all right, just a basic understanding that there's, where do ideas come from? Well, I was thinking about this the other night and it came to me. It's in the universe, right? Well, you had the thought process, you were trying to put stuff together, but for me, and worked a lot of issues out with broken machines and stuff. That was my job for years, So um, I've had a lot of practice at this as far as, okay, you literally have to sleep on it. You have all the information, you know what's going wrong, you know what certain things are, you understand the parameters, but you can't figure it out. And I have literally, like, I've got to be able to see the answer to this. And I would just think and think and think. Come on, it's got to be there. Is it this? Well, no, I've looked over that 12 times, and you're repeating yourself. But there's got to be an answer. And then finally, especially with practice, and especially with wisdom and years of knowledge and and practice, you realize I have to just stop. Especially when I learned that it worked better if I was like, okay, here's all the information that's for the dream time. I'm going to go to sleep and see what if I have any ideas in the morning. And 9 times out of 10, something would be there. A lot of times would resolve whatever the issue was. And sometimes it was something simple that I had missed, but a combination of small things. Okay. So, with that said, there's a lot to be said about the dream time. That old Chinese proverb, is that if you have a problem, and you want to know the answer, then you sleep on it. You take whatever it is that you wish to know about or learn, good or bad, a decision, you eat it. And if it gives you indigestion by morning, then it's bad. And but what's that? What is that saying? It's saying that we should use our intuition, and it's saying that we should use our gut feeling. Okay. Now, why is this important to circumstantial deviation or derivational circumstances? Hey there, Pearl. How are you? So, and what has this got to do with what? Okay, here we go. So, in other words, and it's already been proven in science that there is the observer effect to many things in science and in nature and whatever. So, in my description there, under the title, it's like watching minnows in a pond. And I just left it there, right? Why? Because, well, what has minnows in a pond got to do with it? Well, if you're a naturalist like me and other folks now, don't get me wrong, there are other folks that, but you observe what the minnows are doing. Because if you're fishing or you want to catch a bigger fish, you might be snapping one of them little minis up and putting them on your hook and throwing him out into that deeper water and getting you something bigger to eat, right? But if you want to know where the frogs are, you want to know. But you start with watching the minnows in the pond. And the first thing is, can you find any minnows? Now, for me, down in the Ochlockonee River and a lot of places over the years, I've talked about this, there aren't any minnows. And they should be like, that's like basic, uh, you know, food chain 101, for any river pond or something. There's got to be some minnows around, right? Minnows. So, okay, so your observation. Now, what has that got to do with circumstantial deviations or derivational? All right, because it's the circumstances that you're in. Okay, pick one. Now, I'm using minnows in a pond and nature and stuff, but as a shaman, you're looking for these observational things. As Why is it important? Because when you learn to observe the smallest things, then your observational skills become larger. There is just more that you get. You just like, whoa, I didn't realize that this and this and that could be connected in nature or whatever, right? I didn't know that if this was gone that that would leave, or that if there was more of this there would be more of that. I mean, just whatever it is, right? So, but in a natural sense, um, now I say for the shaman journey, in the shaman journey, you have to live in nature. Nature is a part of the whole. So if you don't learn about nature, then your shaman journey is totally different. And guess what? That is the deviation of your circumstances. What you say? Yeah. So because of where you might live, now I'm living down here in South Georgia, the terrain, the flora and fauna, and plants and animals and that kind of stuff is different than 75 miles north of here. There is a deviation in the topography of Georgia and the South and so forth. It's colder up there. It's not really, it's sort of like for Georgia, it's a false Mason Dixon line. It means that it gets a whole lot colder above this line and it will snow. It will snow south of this line, but not so much. Once in a while. But that it also correlates with those planting zones and so forth for seeds and things, right? So different things grow at different latitudes, longitudes. Okay, so there are things that grow on the East Coast that do not grow on the West Coast. They just don't. They try, but they don't. And there's stuff that grows on the West Coast that doesn't work very good over here on the East Coast. So the circumstances of planting vegetables has to be the deviation. In other words, can I plant it here? Yes or no. So you deviate. Do I plant it? Well, I don't know. It won't grow here. We'll try some. If it doesn't grow, then you deviate. You change plans and you go to something else. So the deviation in the spirit world is if you run into some nasties, then you might have to deviate your direction. You might have to change. And depending upon your circumstances, meaning, for example, if you're on a river and it rains high up in the altitudes, and during the night while you're sleeping by your campfire, the river comes up, your canoe gets swept downstream because you didn't think it was going to be a flash flood. This has happened in Arkansas quite a few times, especially on the Buffalo River, and it's happened in other places too. But so it rains, and you say, "Well, it's just raining, and I'm on the river," but then you don't think about water level, okay, and circumstances. So your circumstances of camping um, is fine. All right. Well, there's not a cloud in the sky. You go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, like some folks did this last night. I woke up this morning and there was, it was nice and sunshiny, and then the rain came in and thunderstorms. But, them folks up there in Kentucky and Illinois and up in there, God bless them. There are a lot of folks have been in and around tornado damaged areas down in Tampa and here and so forth. I get it. Uh, there's a lot of us praying for them folk, and that their circumstances will improve. Okay, now the deviation of their circumstances was a tornado last night. Okay, so everything's humming along in your life until circumstances change or there's a deviation in what you're doing. You take another road to work, and a car comes out of nowhere and plows into you, and your circumstances change. Not necessarily because you deviated from the normal, but that's what it is. So for the shaman spiritual journey, you have to look at all things. Sometimes the really small stuff, like minnows in a pond, to observe if there's any other fish, right? Because if the all the minnows rush over here, something's chasing them a lot of times, right? So you say, "Ooh, there go the minnows." And if they're playing in the grass in certain places, then you can say, "Ooh, there's a lot of minnows over there, but not over there." So the circumstances of their habitat, okay, is better in the tall grass. They can hide from the bigger fish. They can, so there's more to eat. There's stuff, right? So what does this matter? Why? Is this even a topic for discussion? Well, it's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm joking and I'm not, but I am mostly. Is that, well, it's my dadgum channel. I can talk about whatever I want to, but no, this deviation of circumstance, there are people who are going along in their spiritual lives and they don't seem to deviate much from, you know, what they're learning or what they feel about God or, or Christ or spirit or whatever, right? Some Christian might be humming along one day and meet a Buddhist out of nowhere, and the two of them get along, and the Christian becomes kind of sort of a Buddhist. Maybe doesn't transition all the way, but leans heavily towards Buddhism, which is one of the things that I did. Okay. And a lot of other folks have done the same. Because for me, the Catholic Church never allowed nature in. And for Buddha and Buddhism, it's all about everything. Everything's important. So in that study, in that basic understanding that everything's connected, okay, and whether you chant a Buddhist mantra or whatever, or just sit quietly and meditate, but Native Americans, that's their core belief. So having not lived in Buddha land, but I do live here in Native American land. I I leaned away from Buddhism, but found that Native American traditions and legends, they don't have this central figure of Buddha, but their beliefs and their traditions and the honor to the spirits and to nature and so forth is just as high, if not more highly regarded in some ways than the Buddhist are. So it's like, okay, so for my journey, and for me, the shaman part just means I'm studying harder than someone else on their spiritual path. I have made it a dedication to try to delve into the minor things, to observe minnows in a pond, and be able to say, okay, what can we learn from observing this? Or or in my learning of to be observant of the universe, of all things and all peoples and all stuff on so many different levels. So if this is true about us moving into the fourth dimension, and that there's a lot of evidence. And I'm kind of scratching my head here recently, going, what was this big cakewalk they took me on the other night to talk about, invisible monsters and the consciousness of topics and stuff, and I'm still blown away. And my friend was here earlier, and I kept looking up in the sky, and I said, I still don't have a clue as to why that's really important for them, for me to understand, and for me to try to like explain it to other people. And other people are looking at me like, you've really done it this time, Dave. Why would anyone want to? Because it's another level of awareness that did not exist in the old days. Okay, maybe in cities or something, but religion in and of itself, there is a consciousness to religion. Okay, having to do with, I'm just going to pick on the Catholics, because all Catholics mostly think along these certain lines. So there is this channel in the universe, in at least on the earth, of Catholics. Okay, their beliefs, their thing, their whatever, right? The Rosary, Mother Mary, just there are things. If it was Buddhism, it would be Buddha and chanting or bells or the Ganges River. You know what I mean? There would be things aligned with it. Okay. So, but because all of those Buddhists or Catholics or Baptist or whatever, because of those things within the church that they believe, okay, It's not the words in the Bible that make it a religion. Okay. It's it's more of what the preacher may spout out of his mouth, but the words are just words in a book. Until the words are spoken and believed, then the religion happens. So there is no religion if people don't believe in something. Okay. So that invisible ghost, monster, critter that becomes a religion or a church or something, through the belief of the people, it is the consciousness of the people that give a religion its power. So if there is are people in the Andes live differently than we do here in the America in North America. Just obviously, right? Different culture, different altitudes, different stuff. Okay. Um, but there's a lot of commonalities. So our circumstances, okay, location, our circumstances make whatever we talk about, if it's cuisine, food, animals, God, that religion, whatever it is, the circumstances of where we live and how we've grown up and what our belief in the universe is deviates because of our circumstances. Now, why is this important? Because people don't really give it any credence. Well, if and I talk about it all the time, I was in, Kansas City, Missouri, and went to Sioux City and asked for iced tea up there, and they didn't know what I was talking about. And a few hours earlier, I'd just been in, in sweet tea land, and went to South Dakota, and they were like, "Sorry, sweet tea, what's that?" So they gave me a tea bag, hot water, and a glass of ice with sugar. So, so there you go with that. But that's circumstantial deviation. My circumstances was that I wanted some iced tea. And the deviation was my circumstances had changed. I was not in the South anymore. So I was in South Dakota, South, but not the South South. And so I got hot water, a tea bag, and the accoutrements to make my own sweet tea versus it being on the menu and quite common, right? So, um, what does that mean in a spiritual sense? Well, if you live in the Rocky Mountains, your sense of spirit is going to be different because of your circumstances. Okay. And it's going to make your belief deviate because of your understanding. Now, I've been in the Rockies. Okay. We spent a night in oh my God, a thunderstorm in the Bitterroots in Montana, way up in the altitudes. Me and my brother Dan. God Almighty, talk about. I mean, the elevation was so high, the lightning was like striking below us at the lower elevation. We were literally in the thunderstorm. So, circumstances, right? Circumstances that now we wanted to camp, but we didn't know this was going to happen. We wanted to camp in the Bitterroots. We wanted to camp in Montana, which we did, but which everything was fine, but the circumstances changed. A storm front came in, unbeknownst to us. And we had to deviate our sleeping arrangements because we damn near got blowed off the top of that in that pass where we were camped. Holy crap. So sometimes you driving down the road, everything's fine, and then a wheel falls off your car. What? So your circumstances have deviated. Hey, Isby, how are you? Have I David Castle's back? Okay. And Miss Michelle, how are you? But and welcome to actually it's a Sunday morning, but it's a late Saturday night for some folks. We'll count on that. And I've been wanting to smoke this bowl all along, and I missed the 20 mark. But I did smoke with a friend of mine. It kind of got a little tore up. But, hey, smoke if you got them. Ooh, that was a good one. Now, many of y'all have known me for, quite some time. Some of you a couple of years, some not so long, but maybe long enough to kind of, have been listening to my, crazy ass go, oh, I think I kind of get Dave a little bit. So this walk into the dream time the other day with the discussion about the invisible monsters and the connection of all of these quote ideas, and that, like, for example, church, it's not the church in it, it's not the building, um it's not the ceremonies in and of themselves, whatever church or religion, whether you take your shoes off and bow down on the mat or not. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying there's those. And then there are folks who, don't wipe their feet. Okay. So some things are very important to some folks, and to other folks, they go like, what? Why would I do that? So, but it's depends on what your circumstances are, right? So, in a spiritual way, what you learn on a spiritual level, your understanding of it depends on um, your circumstances and whether or not there are any derivatives in the way. Well, what do you mean by derivatives? Well, there are folks down here, the derivations, the diversions. Okay, but the diversions of circumstances are like in religion. So you're humming along, and I'm recalling the story of Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. I'm pretty sure it was Herman Hesse. Michelle looked it up for me. I'm kidding. Anyway, 306. Yeah, thank you. Add and subtract or something, and just make it up. Why don't we? This is our world. We can dream up what we want. I can't change the time, but I can pretend that it's 20. You know what I mean? So, okay. So in that, all right, we can. The miracle of time shift is within us. But this crazy two-word thing, about the um the deviation and differential, of spiritualism. So from the Cherokee tribe, if they traveled across the Mississippi, and careful, Duggar, and traveled across the Mississippi out there to Kansas and out there in y'all, and they met them Sioux and the buffalo, because many of them folks had never seen a buffalo over here on this side of the Mississippi. Right. So I mean, a lot of difference, a lot of similarities. So there were elk out west, and there were elk in the east. So, but they looked a little different, and because of circumstances. So wherever you are on your spiritual journey will always depend on your circumstances. I mean, if you're in a boat in the middle, like we were one time in the Gulf of Mexico, thunderstorm, literally the rudder had fell off, and we were trying. No, it wasn't the rudder; it was the prop that had fell off. So anyway, but we were coming in under full sail in a lightning storm and a gale with waves up 4 to 5 feet. At a 24-foot, um, hunter sailboat with inexperienced people and waves, burst. It could have been a lot worse, don't get me wrong, but for it to suddenly come up and your circumstances change, you have to deviate your course. Okay. So if you're going along with your spiritualism, and somebody runs across the book, or they run across a video or a program or something, right? So their spiritualism, they feel confident, everything's groovy, and then they watch this program. Now, their circumstances just changed. Why? Because they observed something. See where this all ties into observing minnows? Okay. You observe the small stuff to get a bigger picture of the whole picture, of an even bigger picture that's even bigger when you understand, when you at least acknowledge that some of these things exist. So, why is it important? Well, to some folks, it doesn't matter. It really, this is just, it doesn't matter. But if you were to say, I'm in the middle of the ocean, we've got this sudden storm came up, our the prop came off our motor, we're in a sailboat, but it's blowing so hard, if we try to use the sails, they're being ripped to shred. So you start praying to God, where 20 minutes earlier you're sunbathing on the deck and having your brewski, and life is just fine, and 20 minutes later you're almost being thrown overboard, and lightning's trying to strike this 50-foot mast, or 45-foot mast, and things have changed. Gilligan's Island. So a 3-hour tour, and having lived off, around Florida and off the coast and stuff, off the coast to Panacea, in the Gulf, this happens several times. But I mean, as far as storms come up, but you'd be thinking everything's fine. Next thing you know, boom, you got to batten down the hatches and quick. And for people who don't, that might would freak out or whatever, they're easily drowned, get washed overboard or something. It's not for the faint of heart. Okay. So, so you can have a religious experience if you almost get thrown overboard in the ocean. Let me tell you, okay? Because it's like, oh, holy shit. What? Yeah, you want to strap yourself down because the boat's fiberglass and it's kind of slippery, especially when waves are breaking over it and you're trying to hold on and the boat's rocking and you got to help steer and pull the ropes in, and oh, holy crap. So, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, but you also realize one slip and I'm in the ocean. And if you ain't wearing your PFD, you're a drowned son of a bitch. Okay. And so you will have a religious experience in that, so that then if that ever happens to you and you weren't wearing your life vest, the religious experience is, and like for me, is I don't go without it, period. Well, it's calm, it's everything. No, I'm wearing it. Why? Because the strangest of things will happen, that you're humming along like me. I've had, the early on when I first got my kayak, my near drowning experience on the Ochlockonee River, but it was circumstances. Okay. So the circumstances were that I created a situation by being there, um, and the river and how high the water was, and the fact that it was actually in a higher flood stage than we had understood, um, that that deviated our circumstances. Okay. A log came down in the bright moonlight and struck the kayak and the canoe, and I went under. Okay. And it was that fast. So were we doing anything wrong? Well, we were in the wrong place at the right time. Circumstances. Getting capsized changes what you were doing, right? So you have to deviate from the norm. You have to adapt to the situation. Same thing spiritually. So if you're searching for something in whatever religion or whatever it is that oh, it's time, ain't it? Almost. Yeah, let me help get extra time. So this topic, like, what the heck, Dave? Why are you talking about this? What does this matter at all on any level? It's because it's the basic understanding that if you changes in latitude, changes in attitude, changes in attitude, changes in latitude, nothing remains quite the same. With all of their cunning and all of their running, and if they went all crazy, then we would all go insane. Okay, so Jimmy Buffet. But to the point of that, though, it's so very true. So if you've not changed latitudes up and down, or longitudes even, I can be at the same latitude from Georgia and head west, and it turned into a desert. You know, I mean Texas, and but when you get into Mississippi and it changes, right? So even though you may be at the same latitude is around the Earth, and the latitudes start from the equator and go up to the North Pole. Longitude are the lines from the poles all the way down, and they're basically time zones. Longitudes are time zones. So you can go travel. If I travel too much farther east from here, I'll be in the swamps or in the ocean, but I'll still be in Georgia and I'll still be on the same latitude. If I go the opposite direction, I'll be in Mississippi and Alabama and in some foothills and stuff, different territories. So same latitude, different longitudes. So you say, well, okay, what's that got to do with the grand scheme of this? Because that's your circumstance. That's the basis for this. And in sticking with the derivative, right? So that's the derivative. What's the derivative? The derivative. I went 200 miles further west from my current position. All right. So what's that got to do with it? All right. Well, I've changed into a different time zone. All right. So that, I'll be in central time zone. So there is that. If I stay there long enough, I'm going to have to adjust to that time zone. If it's only going to be for a day or so, I'm going to just stay the same and head back home, right? So, which I've done. So, but that changes your circumstance. Right? I'm in a different time zone now. Well, it's going to get darker quicker, especially when we're this close to this side of the time zone. When we were out west and we were on the other end of the time zone at 9 o'clock at night, it was still, 10 o'clock at night, it was still light and everything was like the land of the midnight sun. And it was in the summertime. But so that, it was like, wow, it was almost 12 o'clock for it like got dark. Um, Very amazing for those of us down here in the South where it's a little bit more consistent like that. But so um, in the spiritual realm, we're seeking, most of us, we're seeking to learn how to be at peace. We're seeking how to, absorb the energy from the universe, to understand the stuff in different layers and levels and nuances. So why this topic? Because sometimes you can watch the minnows in a pond up north, or you could watch minnows in a pond down here in the deep south. They're still minnows. They still basically function the same way, but because of the circumstance of different latitudes, their behavior will be slightly different. Okay, colder water, different something, seasonal differences. It's going to affect those minnows. Down south, it stays warmer longer. The minnows play out in the open more. They're still minnows. They still, we're still in the pond, but the circumstances change. What's that got to do with our spirit? I've been to the mountains and sat on a mountain, and my spirit was so elated And like I was like, whoa, So your religious spiritualness can like be in overdrive because because you've changed your circumstances, right? You went to another place. Maybe you moved to another place, or maybe so um and what's that got to do with it? It's that because you deviated, you took a slightly different path than whatever you've been following. 20, thank you. Time to shut up and let y'all just sink that in. Cheers, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you may be. 3:21 in the AM time here on the East Coast, down here in Southwest Georgia. We welcome you all and hope that you're as well as possible. 32. Yep. Yeah, it's 322 at the moment. But anyway, so as I was writing the topic down up in the title bar, right, for this show, I was like, who gives a rat's ass about this subject? And why would anybody even consider this to be important um, on any level? Why would this be important to me? It's important to me because um, just to understand the nature of stuff. And because right now we're in a new age, obviously, things are just crazier than snot, right? On so many different levels. I had two visitors today, and one about my age is, recuperated from cancer and is doing well. But my age but on limited income, we both have our houses and land paid for. We're both smart in that. We've known each other for a lot of years, and he lives almost dang near due south to me, almost exactly. And we even live on the same side of the Little Ochlockonee River. Now, the Little Ochlockonee's in my backyard and part of my property line, but he's got a neighbor with some property, and it borders the Little Ochlockonee. So it's like very similar, but he's 10 miles south. And but anyway, um, but we were all talking about how crazy things have gotten. And, my friend Randy and I, we did radio together. We did theater together. We just a lot of stuff together. He was an auctioneer, talks real fast, and hey, blah, 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 and is very good at it. Was an instructor for a long time. I'm licensed and all that in the state of Georgia and so forth. But anyway, so um we have seen many changes, right? Just like we never would have thought this would be like this, and even just here in these last 2 years, along with everybody else. So our thinking about stuff means that our circumstances have changed across the United States, across the world, right? And because of the vid thing, and and oh, by the way, this new type that they're talking about, I swear to God, there's a movie, a cartoon, some series, and I think it's a like anime or a Japanese dub something, but Omicron, that word has been used somewhere other than as this virus currently. But I can't remember where I've heard it, because when I heard it in the news, I was like, "Wait, Omicron. Wait, that was in a movie or an anime series or something. That it might have been, the name of a robot was Omicron or something. I don't know, but I was like, wait a minute, they're talking about the virus thingy. Whoa, 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 wait. So, but anyway, for those of you who might be palling around with stuff, if it post a picture of your. Oh, what Omicron was a video game? Is that what you're saying, Dave? It seems like it was a character from whatever I can remember. I was like, Omicron, that's like a transformer, like like Cybertron or something like. And that's so my thought pattern went there, like um, maybe it was in a Transformer series. Love animation, especially a good story. Not necessarily to watch, but to listen to. But and have I'm not a video gamer for a long time, so I don't think I would have remembered it from a video game. Okay, not personally, because I just don't do the video game thing for a long time. I quit back in the days of. I started in the days of Frogger on an Amiga, a Commodore computer, a Commodore 64 playing Frogger, you know, and but it just doesn't interest me anymore. But anyway, besides that, oh, however, video games are another etherical thing because I've watched some friends of mine that do this real time playing, and I'll be driving down the road and they're playing real time gunfights and stuff and bombs going off. And he's like, son of a bitch, I got shot. I'm down. Somebody come and save me. And I'm like, who in the hell are you talking to? Hey, ST, how are you? It's part of the thought river. Um, yeah, I in a lot of ways I understand you're right in that it's part of the thought river of fear, but it's not just of fear, it's just of stuff. Fear's in there, but the conglomerate is that if you say, well, if you look at this, whatever they're preaching, well, where does that fit on my scale of need to know? Well, it's interesting, but it doesn't do me any good. Well, but now they passed a law. Oh, what kind of law and where? Now, see, that's important because it very well could affect me or will affect. So, but then somebody says something about somebody. Okay. Now, here's something interesting the other day, and I saw it in the news today. Moronic. Yeah, I would have believed that. And I was reading something, and um, somebody had passed away or something. And I was like, and I was thinking about Dick Van Dyke. And in my head, I was hearing chim chimney, chim chiree. Good luck will rub off when you shake hands with me. Chim chimney, chim chiroo. Lucky is lucky to make land with you. And anyway, Dick Van Dyke. And so a couple of days ago, I was just like, I want, Dick's been around a long time. He's been in a lot of programs. He's been in blah, blah. Then I read the news today, he's passed away. And I was like, now, for me, that still is creepy. Okay. Because I was like, I was just thinking about him, and wondering if he was still alive. And you know, okay, closer to home. Now, for some of you, I've had some deliveries here to the house, but they don't get to the house. So I'm looking for where my parts are. They've been delivered to my neighbor's back porch because they won't drive down my driveway. And it's like it's really annoying. Now, so yesterday, right about sundown, 6 o'clock ish, my next door neighbors are here for the weekend and they've got their little four-wheel gator thing with the lights on, going around up there, and me and Duggar walk up to the top of the driveway and get the mail and everything. And we're doing our evening walk and get back down to the house. And it was just a couple minutes later, I hear this rumble, Duggar's barking, turn around and look coming down the driveway, or headlights, right? And I'm like, no, it's not a car because of the way the headlamps are, and it's too noisy, blah, blah, blah. It's the neighbor. And he's like, hi, Dave, I'm your neighbor. I don't know when they delivered this, but here's a package that's been sitting on our back porch. The UPS dropped it off. So for the last several days or whatever, there's been a package from my sister for Christmas, which, by the way, are cookies and some fudge balls and a couple of interesting books that she sent me on medicinals, and sitting at my neighbor's back door. Now, here's the thing. I was sitting here like Wednesday or Thursday, this is Sunday morning now, and I can see through the way the window is, I could see up to the neighbors. And I kept looking up there going, why am I looking up to the neighbors? And it was like I was expecting a package. And so I even looked at Duggar and I said, you know, are you expecting a package or anything? No, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just talking to myself, looking at the window. But it was overwhelming to look up at I was expecting something. So when they came down the driveway last night with a package from my sister that had been sitting on her back porch for the last couple of days, I was like, well, some bitch. So call it premonition, call it whatever you want, call it. But for me, this happens all the time on a lot of different levels. So in understanding the nuances of the universe, you can pick up on the nuances that's out there in the universe. I was so tempted, like Thursday afternoon, because I was already up there to get the mail at the road, to walk over to the back porch. Doug, get this. Duggar even went over to the back porch Thursday when we took our walk, and I was headed over up their driveway over there to like calling him back to get back over here. That was the day the package was delivered. I'm like, son of a, even Duggar knew there was, I was like, why is he going over to the back porch? And I said, well, because we've walked over here several times to get packages. And whether I knew it, he knew, whatever, but between us, there was a package for me from my sister on the back porch. And of course, my neighbor was gracious enough to bring it down last night. So, but anyway, just strangeness, weirdness in the universe. And I was thinking about, my sister called me a week or so ago, and you think about things, and I was just like, oh, I'm thinking about sister, and was so glad that we talked on the phone the other day, and blah blah blah, and that was the day basically that the package came in that sat on the back porch of my neighbors. The story, it's like there's a hole in the bottom of the sea. But anyway, um, more energy. Who's giving you a confirmation, Michelle? They don't have my permission. I'm kidding. I'm teasing. I really, 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 really am. I'd have to try to scroll back up. So, why is this subject relative? It may not be to you, and that's okay. But for me, it's another level of odd, strange weirdness to look at the world. And because one of the things that's coming up yeah, about energies tonight, absolutely. And, I wasn't going to get on here, and here I am kind of thing. It's also one of those nights as well. When my friend left, I was talking to him. I said, there are folks out there that want me to do a show. They're probably, I looked down at my fake watch and went, they probably want me to do a show right now. And he's like, well, I got to go home and go to bed. And then I got some milk and cookies and started the show. So I'm on here on your behalf because somebody out there was like, Hawkeye, where you at? And so here I am. So why is it important to look at the nuances of things? Because circumstances are going to change for many folks. And um, went to school with Dick and his brother in Danville, Illinois. Oh yeah, there's definitely something tonight. Yeah. But earlier today, I swear to God, I thought I was having some type of really bad trip relapse. Because my reality was like really twist. I was looking across the room. It was like somebody was it was almost turning into a kaleidoscope effect to where the looking at the other end of the room was like distorted, and I was like, I am not on anything. I'm not even stoned. Maybe that's my problem. I'm straight, but oh my god. And I just had to like sit back down. I was going to go in the kitchen and get coffee, and I was like, I just whoa, and I've had a lot of vertigo and stuff with head injuries over the year, but to earlier today was totally different. Okay. I know the difference. That today was totally different. Didn't last long, but it was very peculiar. And so, but, which is interesting with different energy waves and things and stuff. And it's affecting many of us differently. Well, I've had a lot of head injury. So the things that may not affect anybody else, well, a million, thousand to one or something, but because of my head injuries, they affect me like right away, and sometimes put me down. I'm asleep, or I can't walk anywhere. I got to sit. It may not last long, and may just be like woo the woozies for a minute. And then there's times where no, I'm going to have to sit down here for an hour, and it might take a day to overcome. But I've had a lot of more head injury than anybody else, or a lot of other normal folks. What time I was tripping it? Wait, on which I talked about uh, several things. What time, Hawkeye? Oh, yes. Oh, the crazy, spooky, weird thing. What time did you say? It was 5:30-ish p.m. Central. It was earlier in the day for me. You just bake fresh homemade cookies because you said that. Yeah, I've been wanting to dunk up. I got some oat, there's store-bought oatmeal cookies, but you know, I went for a walk as soon as I hit the ground. Yeah, it was earlier in the morning, but there was a couple of incidents later on in towards the afternoon, I gotta say. But you're an hour earlier than I am, so it would have been a lot later. But um, that don't mean that because of your circumstances, where you live in latitude and stuff, that you weren't, and especially being more north, stuff hits the atmosphere differently because it's denser down here in the south. So things are that's sort of the point of this video, is that depending, it could be the same wave that hits the earth, but folks in the north might feel it more because they're closer to the pole and the atmosphere is different than those folks of us down here in the south and or on the equator. So it's the same day, it's the same event, but we're not all affected the same way because of our circumstances. So whatever happened has deviated for each of us due to the circumstances. Yeah. So there are people who go, well, I felt it, didn't you? Well, and I'm feeling this way. That's how you should be feeling. No, because, there is this deviation in our circumstances. You know, what do you mean? Because you live further north than I do. And I'm sorry, but things change, right? There's more people watching the experiment, right? The observer effect. Or there's fewer people watching an event, you know. Uh, I've seen some spectacular UFOs blowed up in the sky that covered the night sky that I tried to report, and it was like it never existed. But so to the point, there are some things that I know I saw them. I could because I recorded it. I wrote down colors and times, and it was very specific. And send it to the asteroid meteor thing observation stuff. It never got published. 3 times I tried, and it would not publish on the day at the time that I said that I saw the event. And I mean, I described it clearly, what direction, what the colors were, how it split up, how it blew apart, and it never got entered into the meteor sighting thingies, which I found to be interesting in and of itself because it was a huge event. So, if somebody didn't observe it, then it didn't happen. You know what I mean? And if only a couple of people saw it, it still didn't happen. But if a bunch of people saw it, then it's a big event, right? So, what's the difference? There is a deviation of circumstances. So the circumstances of whatever I saw that night, actually coming over from my friend Randy's house, that is just south of me. Um, I was like, so the circumstances were that nobody saw it, or maybe some of it who saw it and tried to report it, they were like, yeah, we can't let this one out because it was a big event. So, okay, government's controlling stuff. There's your invisible monster. Okay. All of this is related because it's all in the quantum. I sent it in with an email. I filled out a form on the internet. It was the national organism thingy, right? It was the right place. No record of me ever contacting them to fill out a form, which was weird. So it's like, okay. So did the event still happen? I saw it. Did the world know that there was a big event in South Georgia and wherever else it could have been seen? Don't know. Because the only place to report it, for whatever reason, it didn't report my 3 attempts at trying to, enter the data. So there was a deviation on the part of the people that I was trying to provide the information to. They differed, and it took a different path and deviated by them not printing it or putting it on the server. So the circumstances of this great big sky event circumstances was not reported to anybody else. It was not seen. So there's the invisible monster again. We had this big explosion over the atmosphere down here in South Georgia, huge. Nobody knows, and those who were reported, well, I didn't see nothing. Did you? No. So, but the event still occurred. So the deviation of circumstances. If a crap load of people had seen it, and I had a camera or something and could have took a picture, that would have changed the circumstances, right? So in our future events, with learning about the fourth dimension, with learning to deal with astral type uh, critters. For me, I've known about astral projection since I was, uh, you know, preteen. Okay, And so a lot of people are still trying to learn it, trying to understand it, or whatever. So whatever the astral walk they took me on the other night about this topics having consciousness, that I never thought the topic of abortion is a hidden monster, and it has a consciousness due to the people who think about it. What? But this is tied into the nuances. When something changes in our lives, it changes our circumstances. We have to deviate from what we know or deviate from our daily activities. So the two of them are absolutely intertwined in a lot of ways. So, but future events, I think that my dear brothers upstairs are trying to get across to me to try to help other folks to understand that we're going to be facing some things in the future that aren't necessarily going to be catastrophic, but it's going to change our point of view or on whatever level. I mean, because if the last 2 years of the thing hasn't changed us, that would be wrong. Every single one of us has been affected in some way these last 2 years. And they want to try it again for 3 years in a row. I mean, seriously? But these crazy people don't want to give up. So in understanding the different levels of those hidden monsters that I was talking about, so the new fear is the new variant, and therefore the new variant and the code word is, you see. So for everybody that talks about the code word, then that code word is activated and stays sentient on the computer. Hi, Bob, by the way, I would share cookies, but there's no port to put cookies in. I could crumble some on over the keyboard, I guess, and blow some in the USB port, but then the computer would go down. But so the idea of why is this important? And I've been asking my spirit guides the last couple of days, like, why is this information on this particular level that you're explaining it to me? What the hell does this mean? I mean, I'm just even just for me, whether it has any value to you or not, but MUFON is overrated. Oh yes, I didn't report it to MUFON. I reported it to meteors coming in and stuff. I did not try to report it to MUFON. I I just knew that wouldn't work, right? And I had no real evidence other than an eyewitness account. But I figured on the website where you report meteors and so forth, that it would show up there, and I could look because of my entry and see if anybody else had any entries or visuals, reported on that date and time, and there were none, not even mine, which was like really weird to me. It still is after all these years. Uh, they want to create reality of fear. Yes. But here's the thing, this time around, so many people ain't playing it. They are just not playing it. I mean, they are so ignoring it, not paying attention to it, that there is a large portion of populace that they just ain't playing it. And but now to the same point, when I don't go to the store as frequently as I did because my truck, but when I was at the store the other night, there were people in there um, that had more masks on, and there was one gentleman there that was about my age ish, and had a surgical mask on, was very prim and proper, and was like giving me the eyeball because I didn't have one on. And other people in there was like, hi buddy, how you doing? I'm sure you don't want to shake hands with me, but but it was like attitude where, I don't know, a month ago, same store, of course, different people in and out. There was maybe one or two masks. So, but Sunday, there were fewer people without masks than did. There was like a switch, and I was like, "What? What just happened?" I've been to the house a couple of weeks, and I come back into the store. What the hell's happened? Other places, nothing's changed. You know, so um, there's so much obvious information, for example, about the mask as far as the particle size and its efficiency and people who cough in the mask. Now we have all these masks that are now potential, hazardous, material, right? Oh, it could be, oh my God, right? And festering this and that. Okay. So, but I believe from some of the observations that I've made at this point, due to the wearing, not wearing, and whatever, is that it's like, well, but I saw it on the news. You got to do it again. And like, wait a minute, have we not gone through this before? But well, and Dr. Fuxi, said, well, we got to listen to the guy. He's part of the CDC, who's trying to poison everybody. Take your vax, everybody. What? Yeah, okay. So the facts that long time ago the CDC applied for a patent for this virus. What? Yes. So, it's all been a ruse, but will these people believe it even if they read it or found out about it or did the research? No. But they're going to believe whatever the 6 o'clock news is. But for those folks who were scared the first time around and got their potential and are doing okie dokie mostly, and no side effects. Some have had their boosters, like a couple of my family members, and they're just not worried. Well, I've done my part. I've had my first, I've had my bumper, and I'm just not worried. I've complied, and life goes on for them, right? And they're not worried about wearing any kind of thing because they've got their card. Okay. So if somebody want to get bitch at them, no, here's my card. You know, no, here's my card. Me, I don't have a card, right? There are some guys on the NFL or whatever that had fake cards, like, oh yeah, of course, that would be, like, of course, uh, quarantine area, and here's my card. It's the future with zombies and never mind. You could be a zombie and it could go either way. If you've had yours, then you could be a zombie. Or if you haven't had yours, you could turn into a zombie. So interesting either way, right there, right? So, but see, if the circumstances change, then our lives will deviate from the norm, whatever is normal for us. So, like, for example, today, I went outside looking at the clouds, doing my thing, pulling some weeds, and outside with the dog and a couple of things, looking up at the sky. And as the clouds are going by and in between rain, they're spraying the bejeebers out of the sky. I mean, it's like this way, that way, this way, above the rain clouds. Like, holy crap in a bag. I mean, like they were really pouring the juice to them, and but it has been normal has been like almost normal again with the occasional, uh, you know, aerial spraying, uh, high altitude stuff. And today it was like they were hammering it for whatever reason. So yesterday was fine with this is that, but today now with this now, so the circumstances of the cloud have changed. So for me, it has changed the amount of sunlight that comes into the house. It deviates the amount of solar gain that I can have. Why? Because the clouds, they put false clouds up there, which block, uh, you know, the sunlight enough to where the house doesn't heat up like it used to. Now, at the same time, those clouds could be blocking some really nasty, outer space rays, right? So it could work both ways, or something else, right? For us, what is important for the future? I think there are going to be people who are going to be seeing one of these stories I was listening to was very interesting. And it was that showing, how this entity knocked the spirit out of the person. And so the body's laying there on the ground and they've got this chain on them, their astral self, their spirit self, and it's chained to the body. And they were trying to explain, so, "Ooh, how's this?" And it was like, well, what's the chain for? Well, it's not necessarily to keep you from going anywhere, but it's to keep you chained to your body so your spirit don't fly off. Okay. So in the early times, I don't know if they still refer to it now, but the silver thread that connects the spirit and the astral body to the body itself, right? Different ways of looking at it, and this particular was a chain, but it was trying to teach the guy lessons in the spirit self that but it's this great big chain that weighs me down. And he goes, it only weighs you down if you think it weighs you down because you're in your spirit. So the chain has no weight. Oh, see, different circumstances. So in his 3D world, the chain was so heavy he could barely walk around. But because his spirit was out of his body and learning these different tricks, this great big huge chain that he could see and hanging around him, it he was in his spirit, so it had no weight. Oh, so you deviate from, oh my God, I can't walk because the chain's heavy, from how you react to things around you. All right. And because of the circumstances, and because he was out of body and the chain was kind of more or less in his brain and no actual weight, oh my God, his awareness changed. And he was like, whoa, this is cool, So, but if you've never experienced anything like that, the difference between them, which both might seem very real, right? And you go, wait a minute, I'm in my astral, or I'm not in my astral, I'm in my body. It's like, oh, you're in a crowded room and you say something and you stop and go, did I just say that out loud? One of those kind of circumstances, right? So in the future, as these energies and stuff, and a lot of folks are talking about the energies. So um, I would say absolutely, and my spirit guides both agree wholeheartedly. Don't go in to believe in some of the stuff that's out there. Take it with a grain of salt. Just take it with a grain of salt. It's information, okay? And, there are going to be people who are going to, it's going to be sort of like the mask, but in that, well, we all believe it like this. Why don't you? Well, you must have to believe it like this because we all believe it like this. You know, peer pressure? No, no, no. We can discuss it. We should discuss it. Different people should discuss, like we have in here. How it does it make you feel? Are there similarities? Whatever. That's because the people they just both are just and booster, but she is very ill. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, Isby, I would agree with that. That 85%. Oh, and they're talking about all these kids and all that, and then you talk to a couple of the parents and the kids, and they go, not in our school. Oh, but yeah, well, 80%, blah, 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 blah. And then you talk to the kids and the parents that go, not my kid, your kid, no. And so maybe 50, maybe in certain circumstances, but they're really, especially down here, they're really pushing for like 75%. Like that's so, what? So you want either 75% to go along with it and have potential side effects, and or that you want 20, that you just don't give a shit about 25% of the population because your goal is only 75%. I'm just saying, it's just strange the way they word things, you know. But see, so, and they keep reminding me, I'm so sorry. But it's that they created this monster down here around Albany and down here in South Georgia. Strive for 75. So with this strive for 75 for the thingy, that that took a life of its own. So some people were like, well, yeah, we got to get 75%. It should be more than that. Everybody should sign up. Why won't they do, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, because I couldn't take flu shots long before this. Okay. I have really bad, life threatening allergic reactions. Please no, do not put that thing in me because of those reasons. Um, Otherwise, I shouldn't I have grounds to shoot them? But anyway, that's something else. But so the manipulation of the numbers, there are folks who have gotten benefits, uh, unemployment benefits and stuff like that. And there are some folks that, because of this, have just dropped out. They Here's the thing, they don't know what to do. Well, I used to work as a this, but those jobs don't exist anymore. I worked at this restaurant for 12 years and it had to close. Now what do I do? Well, I'm an older person and the skills, I don't want to work at a fast food place. I want to work at a restaurant, and cook in the kitchen. No, I don't want to do this, So, but then, well, there aren't any restaurants open. And the people who used to waitress and bartend and do all these things, I mean, hundreds of people, and the businesses themselves just gone, right? So circumstances have greatly changed because of these events, which has caused the population to deviate from what used to be normal. The words are circumstantial evidence, Is it circumstantial when you see that certain things have thrived and other things have failed? Those are the giant silent footprints of the monsters that have been created or killed. There's been some monsters that have been killed because of this, the invisible ones. But the more that, and it's like, I'm trying my best not to think about it, but I glance at this or watch or something or read a thing, and and they're like in my head. See, there's another one of them invisible critters. Would y'all stop it? But there's another example of how consciousness of people talking about this. So there are people talking about, the portals and things in December and so forth. Okay. I've lived through quite a few of them. Nothing special, just saying. Haven't observed anything special about the earth, just saying. Every year it comes around, they talk about the portals in December, and every time it comes around, I'm like, okie dokie, but haven't seen anything of any decent consequence. There have been like some personal things like, well, it felt weird today. And that was about that, right? Oh, but our consciousnesses, everybody's going to be awake now because of the port. You look around and there are more people asleep, you know. So it's like, well, and it's going to be like this, the fortune tellers of this, this stuff. And I'm like, look, it has the potential to be there. All right. Is it going to do what you said for the last 20 something years? I've been listening to some of it. It hasn't happened yet. And I, used to be waiting with great anticipation. Now I just observe because I have waited with, grand anticipation and have been let down time and time and time again, right? So even the people who are trying to sell us good information haven't gotten it right, in my humble opinion, at all. There are certain percentages. Well, we of this group had this feeling on this day, and like, good for you. But here's the thing: we, you, me, you, and us could get together on any particular day and create a similar event, and there wouldn't be any kind of portal or full moon or anything and attached to it. We all just got together, had a really good conversation. We all, and we felt it, and we would all claim, and we would be correct, in that we all felt this uplifting feeling on this day and time. Well, absolutely, because y'all created it. You brought to a consciousness because there was enough of you on that day thinking the portal and the energies from the universe, and y'all got this wonderful awakening because y'all were tuned into it. That was what you wanted. But for the rest of us who were just sitting there on the day going, well, today's supposed to be the day. Well, Frank, I heard, did you feel anything? No. What about you, Myrtle? No, not me either. Did the dogs bark or anything? No. Did the sky darken or any, black holes open up? No. Any aliens or anything? No. Well, but these people claim they had these great, wonderful, divine, things on that day. Any of you all over there? No. How about you folks? No. Did they have a divine moment? Probably. But was it because of the portal, honestly? Or was it because those people got together on that day using the portal as their frequency word and they would have had a religious experience? I believe that. But do I believe that a portal opened, every year? It's the same, blah, 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 blah. So those folks have felt something. I believe that. But the rest of us didn't. Okay. So they're absolutely convinced that they're right because they felt something. I have waited around with great anticipation and felt nothing. But there are other days and things. There are a lot of things that I do feel like there felt like there was something up there sitting on the back porch of my neighbors, and it was a package from my sister, cookies and stuff. So there are intuitions and feelings that I have personally over my many years that I trust and have become accustomed to. And so I feel like I'm qualified enough to be able to tell if there was something from the universe that was happening, right? And especially if I was like, well, December, blah, 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 or, today's the day, wokey dokey, and nothing. But now I wasn't meditating with other folks. I wasn't on a channel, on a YouTube channel or anything at the time with other people, or in a group at some Mount Shasta or something kind of group thing. I'm just going to leave it there with you can kind of figure out what I'm talking about there. But so did those folks actually have an event? And I would say yes, but it was not an event that was worldwide. The date was worldwide, but the circumstances of people and the deviation of where they are on the planet, the time, the thing, but all these people in California around Mount Shasta had this feeling on this day. It was great. What about the rest of the world? Eh. So, did it exist? Did it actually happen? Yes, it did, but not for us, because we weren't tuned into that radio station that day. Does does both are valid though? That's the point. Well, we felt it, therefore it happened. And next year, when it comes time for that date, we're all going to get together, and it's going to even be better the next year. Yeah, I'm still waiting after all these years, and now with whole lots less anticipation. So, years ago, I thought about this. Now, if I meditate with this, am I going to be convinced that something happened if it didn't? And so, in my question of things many years ago, when I was just first really starting to get into the shaman thing, I was just being on a spiritual journey, right? Nothing else. But then I started noticing, the snake oil salesman, on all different levels of the spiritual and ET and other areas, right? And it's like, so my guides and folks are like, we have to talk about all of them, and we have to bring some reality and at least discussion in on some of this stuff, where other people are just like, well, yeah, but this so and so is an ET specialist, and they said it, so it must be true, must going to happen. It's got to be, because they said so, and certain Davids and things and stuff. And well, he said so, so it must going to happen. And these people in the alliance, and these people from the Federation, and those folks over in, I'm sorry, I absolutely truly want to believe. And so for the idea of a portal and a date or time specific, that the universe is going to open up and send us stuff. The universe is sending us stuff all the time. Are there higher peaks? Yes. I will absolutely agree with that. I was born on the full moon of Cancer. Uh, hey, SD, how are you? But so, and I was explaining, I think I said this in one of my videos a couple of days ago or something. I was talking with some friends, and I said, here we go again with the rapture. Here we go again with the blood moons and the and the eclipse and the eclipse, and oh my God. So did anything really bad happen? Well, the volcano's still going off, and there's still some storms and stuff, but those are weather events. Okay, but did did the date have anything to do with it? And we could possibly cobble some stuff up and maybe, but not really, Well, the full moon, like the earth was going to split open and we were going to become two minor planets in the solar system. And with the moon between us or something, right? Anyway, so I told my friends, I said, I said, people are still selling the rapture like they're doubling down. 10 years ago, they were selling the rapture. And in the last 10 years, they've had to keep come up. Now, oh, there have been some honest to God catastrophic events, do not get me wrong. I'm acknowledging them, but the world has not come to an end. The rapture has not happened. And on one of the galactic channels, I noticed they're like, will you be a part of the 1,444,000, or will you be a part of the 144,000 that transfers to the new Earth? What? The Galactics, this channel, is preaching the end of the world and the rapture. 144,000, blah, blah, blah. Are you going to be one of them? What, to go to a spaceship? Are you sure you want to get beamed up? And here's the thing, two people having really good, honest to God, intimate sexual encounter. And for those folks who have had a sure enough, both of you at the same time, that ecstasy moment that you don't get nowhere else, because a lot of us have tried. But it between two people, and you say, well, you talk about, but if you've ever had that moment when both of you do, that is ecstasy and a rapturous moment. Why do you think there are nymphomaniacs and, and guys that can't keep their hands off themselves? Why do what? Because there is that ecstasy moment. There is that rapturous moment. Ain't got nothing to do with God or the universe per se, but I mean, there's two people in love that do it and consummate and have that. That is a special relationship. Um, and it's very open-minded, and it's different than folks who don't have that in their relationship. There's not a closeness. They don't have understand the ecstasy of what could be between two people because they've not experienced it. They've had, what they consider to be normal sex or whatever, but they really never climax together. All right. And I've talked with people over the years and said, well, what are you talking about, Hawkeye? Well, you mean you and your spouse is never like at the same time? Well, I don't know. When I do, and I guess she does. What do you mean you guess she does? My wife knows. I know when my wife does because I can hear and feel it, and you don't know. Well, I do, and there are women who are like, "Well, I did. I don't know about him." So where's that rapture? There is no ecstasy there. And which is with the right folks, two people or whatever, it's very spiritual. In fact, there was years ago I was reading, and not it was not necessarily study, but if you read about something, you're kind of studying it. Where this old Chinaman, he was like 83 years old, and he had three concubines that lived with him. He wouldn't marry because he was too old, and they asked the women, they said, he's 83 years old. And the one lady said, yeah, and he wears this out. Well, what do you mean? Well, sexually, he wears us out. He could wear three more women out. We are not enough for him. But he's 83. Yeah. And they were like half his age or whatever, but they were like, we can't keep up with him. That's why there's three of us. What? So whatever route he was taking or whatever, but so the energy isn't necessarily about age. But they were like, so, but why do you stick with him? And they said, like, looked at each other and said, because um, when we are together, he brings us ecstasy. And the person was like, what does that mean? Well, if you've never had a climax with your partner, then you don't get it. So, but they looked at each other and kind of, between the women, the guy, the little Chinaman wasn't there. And they all smiled and kind of did this little, he give us ecstasy is what they said. So it's like, okay, but even though there was three women, and even though it was an 83-year-old guy who was some kind of kung fu or something, but it was that, why did they stick with him? Because he brought them some type of ecstasy that was so spiritual. They're like, nah, I don't care that he's 83. I don't care. No, no, he bring me ecstasy. So because there is a, whatever it was, spiritualism, right? So in spiritualism, it's kind of left out. Now, as a hermit myself, and I'm so old, it's like, I can't remember the last time I had any kind of relations with a woman because I prefer that. I do not want to change sexes, no, sorry, just for the sake of being deviant. I'm sorry, did I say deviant? Yeah, I did. Hey, Deborah, that was that verse is a man made the original in Hebrew or is anything like that. But to the point though, so the idea of what is ecstasy, well, I probably won't experience that because of my age and dating. I'm not dating or anything like that. I know no females or whatever, and like I say, I ain't changing sexes. So just to uh, and I because I've known some folks that were like, well, any port in a storm, I'm like, I'm sorry, but no, I ain't going into that port. I'll stay in the storm. But anyway, uh, it is 420 indeed. Absolutely. Wow, we got there quick. I've been yammering on this for 2 hours now. Holy crap. Cheers. Yeah. It's like the joke, there was this new sex shop that had opened up in the neighborhood in a town, USA. And so there's some folks there, and you're like they're whispering and looking at the devices and down in the counter, and they, oh, Marge, look at this one, and she, ooh, the two ladies talking with the guy behind the counter. So the two ladies, the like, Henrietta and Bernadette, they hear the bell ring when the door opens, the ding ding. And so they turn, and there's this little old lady that's like older than dirt with a cane, and she's barely making it across the floor, right? And so they step over to the side, and the lady's like, excuse me, Sonny, can you help me, please? And he goes, well, yes, ma'am. What is it? And she said, that model right there? And he goes, well, yes, ma'am. That's a very popular model. And she said, can you tell me how to turn the damn thing off? And she's like, in the store. So it's like, okay, attitudes have changed, circumstances have changed, which has changed how we look at stuff and how we might perceive things. Uh, Haile Selassie, I remember him from a long time ago. In fact, I did a speech of one of his speeches in school. Your man hit 50 and turned 18 again. I'm still 18. I just have no way to show it. Anyway, but um, which is a shame because not just only for me, but in the grand scheme of things, people who have close relationships and who've been married for 40 years or something, they have made it through all their arguments and everything. Now, some of them, I have met some folks that are just there for convenience, but then there are those folks who, even though they might not have sex but once a month, but they're still very close to each other. So they might not have these ecstasy, intimate moments all the time. But here's the thing: the fact that they have experienced them together over their 40 years of marriage, it's still that twinkle in their eye. And whether or not it happens like when they were kids, the feeling is still there with between them, right? So, but anyway, I know there are old ladies who would love to have, and I know some old men who would love to have, and it's a shame there ain't a better way for older people, I guess, to get it on without some kind of website or something. But just like, anyway, probably kill a bunch of people. But there was a nursing home that I worked in, and there was one guy, and I was there one evening, and I seen him coming out of like Miss Doris's room or something. And he was in his 70s, and now that I'm almost 70, I'm like, holy crap, would that be me? But he was sneaking between the old lady's rooms and doing whatever he was doing. But they liked it when old Charlie came in every in the evenings. And he'd come out of their little rooms with just this little smile on his face. And I'm like, well, you go, boy. And girls, you go. But he was sneaking from room to room there, and it was like a 50-bed nursing home. 50 or 100. Anyway, there was at least 50. But 50 room, there were two beds to some of the rooms. But anyway, it was 100 bed, that's what it was, 50 rooms. But holy mackerel, So, but now that I'm getting old, it's like I don't want to go chasing or anything, but to have a good I always figured that I would have an honest, loving relationship with my soulmate, and we would be live together and all that didn't happen, right? Um, and I'm not looking anymore, but it still could happen. Anything's possible. But since I'm not looking and so forth, it could just like zoom right by and I wouldn't know. But I'm not anticipating it. I'm not sending any energy on it, but I'm still open if a relationship happened, right? From my point of view. But for other people, because they can't have a relationship and they don't have a relationship, life has lost a lot of meaning for both some men and some women. And it's not necessarily about sex, although there's 25% is. It is absolutely more about companionship. Now, my friend Martha that passed away this last year, we never had sex together or anything like it, or thought about it, but we were friends for 45 years plus, and we were companions. We were friends. I will absolutely sorely miss our companionship of going places and doing stuff. So, finding a good companion that you can share things with, and not necessarily have to sleep with, but you know what I mean? Because sometimes that gets in the way versus being a help. But that it was never an issue for us, but we stayed friends, and we stayed companions. And so companionship, absolutely important. And there are those folks like me who have become recluse one way or the other. Sometimes for me, some of it's self-imposed. But that, to have a good companion, to just go to the movies and watch a show, male or female, doesn't matter, but a good companion where there's no other kind of anything else. And They might be sloppy dressed or whatever, but regardless, you're still their friend and you're still their companion. You'll still go somewhere with them or whatever, and put up with their flaws or quirks or twerps or whatever, right? So, the things that seem to be coming in the future, it seems that there are going to be those, and I'm going to use the word separatist, in that they wish to be separate from other people, not necessarily in any kind of political way, but more of in a social way. And they just want to be separate. Deliver it to the house. Friends of mine, well, just send it by mail or have UPS send it. Well, UPS sends it to my damn neighbor. I didn't even know my sister had sent a box. So it's been up there, 4 days sitting at the neighbor's house because I didn't know it was coming. Now, the neighbors only come once every 2 weeks. So it just happened to be this week they came. Last week, I was expecting a package. So whatever was on the back porch, I had collected. But, so if somebody send me something and it comes UPS, I might not never get it because it goes to the neighbors, right? So this idea, well, why don't you just have them ship it to your house? Because they don't ship it to my house. Okay. So I'm all for online and stuff like that, but when I'm in a precarious situation where they won't deliver it down the driveway to my house, there's issues. So anyway, so because of my circumstances and the circumstantial evidence of the UPS and FedEx leaving my shit at the neighbors instead of here, is obvious that, I'd rather go get it, versus wonder which of the neighbors are not delivered to me. So all of this is related on so many different levels. Now, what does it mean to us spiritually? What does it mean to us on a day-to-day basis? For me, a lot of it and for my shaman journey, it's just to understand it, just to understand it, it's there. Do I thoroughly understand the mechanics and the machinations of how it works and stuff? No. Do I really care to? Not really. Um, for example, going back to my minnows in a pond, uh, do I exactly know how a minnow swims in the water? Not really. They move their tail back and forth. I know there are muscles and whatever, but that's enough for me to know. And I know that fish breathe from water through their gills. Do I know how they do it? No. The air goes through. I just know they do. If they're out of the water, they die. In the water, good. For humans and other folks, in the water, bad. We don't breathe water. So, there's certain common understandings. But if you don't understand that a minnow needs water to live in, and you go scooping them out with your little mini dipper, then they die, and they're a lot less efficient for fish bait. But it's these small nuances. Whatever's coming, we got lots of different energies coming in. There's several channels and folks who've been watching like Walt Thornhill and the Electric Universe and the Thunderbolt Project and stuff like that. There are a lot of good people who are looking at the universe in a totally different way than the rest of science, basically. And that, craters weren't made from impacts. Some of them were, but a lot of the craters were made by electrical discharges that made swirls on the ground. A lot of proof, a lot of science, but it's not generally talked about. So, and a lot of this has to do with electric currents between the planets, between the sun and the earth. And yes, now there are those folks who do astrology. I absolutely believe that there are things to the alignments of planets and things. But having watched my um, horoscope over the years, I'm a Libra, blah 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 blah. I'm a water dragon in that respect, in the Chinese calendar, and I would read them beforehand. What your horoscope for this week is? Okay, and it would get set in my mind. So it was at times almost like I had to prove somehow that the horoscope was right. So then I said, well, wait a minute. As a science project, I'm not going to read my horoscope until the end of the week to see if any of it came true. In other words, I'm just going to live right on through it and see how it turns out, and then read what they said was supposed to happen. And there was only a tiny bit that was ever really right for me. Now there are other folks, oh my God, my horoscope was right on. Now I gotta say, there were times when my horoscope was dead on the money, and I would like drop the paper or whatever I was reading, going, holy crap. But then most of the time, maybe if I stretched it, it'd be kind of sort of close. Oh, your love life is gonna. My love life ain't shit. Quit telling me this. Oh, yeah, but your love life is gonna change. What, from bad to worse? Or from zero to like minus? How do we, well, you're gonna get older and your thing's gonna shrink and your prostate's gonna swell and you ain't gonna want sex anymore. So why do you want to mate? Okay. Oh, gee, thanks. But my horoscope says that, oh, my life is going to be great. Really? Okay. Well, I feel like I got a golf ball up my ass because my prostate swelled. And is that my date for tonight? Is that golf ball feeling up my rear end? My prostate swelled 4 times its size. Is that the present? Is that the excitement I'm going to get from some kind of imaginary romantic encounter? Seriously? Because that's about as close as it gets, right? So, but to the point of the astrology, it's not there. It's the truth ain't there. It ain't in the stars. There are certain things that will follow along certain suits, but the idea that so should those folks who do charts and this and that, they're so involved with this is in Mars and this is aligned with this and that. I kind of think that they make their own astrology come true. It's almost that they will it, bad or good, because like I said, I did a lot of study, and I still look at, not like I used to, but wonder what my Chinese calendar says for the coming year. What water dragons could expect for this upcoming year. Okay, interesting read, right? But am I going to, and I used to do this, write it down. This coming year, I'm going to do this and that, and the dragons are going to be like this, and that. Then at the end of the year, I look back and I go, none of that shit really happened. So, and then I said, well, maybe I didn't focus on it enough. Well, wait a minute. If the stars say this is going to happen, I didn't work hard enough. Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. The stars said this is going to happen. But like I'm just going to sit in a rocking chair and all by itself is going to appear. Or do I have to do? Wait a minute, you didn't send me any instructions. You just said my chart's going to be like, and you're going to find love, and you're going to do this, and it's going to well, wait a minute. Um, you know, I was in a car accident. I had both legs in a cast, but I was supposed to win an award for winning a race. What? Well, my horoscope said, I was going to go climb mountain peaks and shit. I'm in a cast. Okay. Well, but the horoscope says. Okay. So I think it's interesting. I think there have been things that happen on astronomical on an astronomical level that have been recorded by the Chinese and the Indian Sumerian, just take them folks over yonder and just go back a ways. And yes, because folks didn't have TV, they didn't have street lamps, until just a few hundred years ago, mostly. They did have kerosene lamps and things in some of the towns back in the day, but mostly it was too much trouble, right? And so the stars, everybody could see the stars. There were no airplanes or whatever, the skies were clear. And for those folks who live out west or up north in the Canuck places and stuff, where it's the atmosphere is clear, the stars absolutely pop out at you. Versus being near a city and conditions uh, around the city and the extra light and so forth. The stars don't look the same. Guess what? It's your circumstances. Well, the circumstance tonight was partly cloudy, but when I went out earlier with my friend before I started this, Orion was really bright and in the sky and kind of in a strange place, but like, how did it get over there? But and the moon has moved up several degrees higher in the sky in like overnight, but it's been cloudy the last 2 nights, so it's been hard to really see where the moon is. But um, anyway, so there are lots of things going on. Yeah. Why does it matter? It depends on how much you want to understand of the universe for yourself. So for me, I sit and watch the ants. By the way, that Duggar had left a couple of bites from one of his bones that I gave him yesterday were on the floor. And I woke up this morning and there were ants everywhere on the floor. Not a clue where they came from. Except I got a couple of cracks in the cement over the years, and I guess they're coming up out of the cracks because they're not outside anywhere. But the whole floor was, a bunch of ants. I'm like, what? So to not having any, they haven't reappeared. Where are the ants coming from? I mean, I poured things down in the cracks and then everything's fine. And then one day, Duggar leaves a little bit of meat off of a bone that he's chewed over there on by his bed. And ants find it from somewhere. How they find it, where, because I don't sweep all the time, but every other day or something, if there's something like that on the food on the floor, I'm picking it up because I don't want it, but a little leaf or something or a little bit of dirt. But I sweep up because Duggar sheds and it gets collected. But to be overnight, just a couple of hours, a tiny little piece of beef where he was chewing on the bone, and then the little piece of bone covered with ants. Like, where in the hell did you guys come from? I don't know. Out in the yard, there's no ant beds. There's no ant beds around, and I don't know where they came from, but they were here in the middle of the house, in the middle of the floor. So circumstances change, and you have to deviate from what you're going to do. So, yes, circumstantial deviation. Now, circumstantial determination. That's not in the title. But the next thing is are we predetermined to do things? So if I read my horoscope and I say, well, I'm supposed to be whatever on Tuesday or whatever, well, by the middle of the month, blah, blah, blah. And so you kind of like, I hope there's something in your life that could be attached to whatever's in the stars. And so you put a little faith towards it. You add a little, like you're looking for a job or you're trying to get a loan or something, right? So whatever it might be. And so you're working along them lines and you're sending the vibes out and you're asking the universe but sometimes shit just don't work, right? It just doesn't turn out for whatever the reason, right? But it's usually some type of circumstance. And, all we can do is adapt to it. Whatever the changes are coming, and all the places that there are folks talking about energy changes and things that don't normally talk about energy changes, which is one of those signs that it's like, what? Uh, hmm. So, um, Cliff High used to do a lot of videos on YouTube, and he doesn't anymore for various reasons. He has done some things on some other channels, but um, Cliff had some things going, and he got me into this type of thinking quite a few years ago in a cause and effect. So he would run these algorithms that would the little spiders that would go across the web and collect data and mine this data. And basically, what are the trends, right? So, but if you do like I do and watch newspaper articles, read, I used to be more into the financial. I think anybody who buys gold or silver or anything like that or invests in something is stupid. Put money under your damn mattress because if the shit goes down, that's what you're going to need. Some investment in something a long way off. Did you people not learn from what happened in the Great Depression, the big stock market crash, that all that stuff that y'all might have that you think is worth something is going to turn to zero? And folks are going to be jumping out of buildings because they were stupid. And that's okay, as far as that goes. If that's what their circumstance is, right? But so, for folks who read their horoscope ahead of time, are they actually accepting that somehow the universe is being predetermined, that their life is predetermined by the stars? Now, I don't do horoscopes anymore, or very rarely anymore, like I used to. So I don't know what my horoscope is. But I could look it up and see what it was like for yesterday or last week or something. And but do I really want to look and see what and Libra has to look forward to in the coming weeks, right? And okay, oh look, all these great things are going to happen to me, and then nothing does. Well, now is that my fault? Or was this predetermination by the stars false? Or were the circumstances not right here, but the stars aligned? They could have happened. Yeah, but they could have happened on Wednesday or they could have happened on Tuesday of the next week. Did they have to happen on this date at this time because the stars were aligned? So my point is that, could the event that the stars are trying to determine actually happen without knowing that the stars are aligning? So, you want to make a business deal. Well, I don't know. My horoscope says, yeah. If you meet a couple of folks and you're working on a deal and you got a contract and you all have a drink together and a meal and they go, okay, we'll do it. Did you look at the clock and did you look at the date and go, well, I'm sorry, we can't do this. Tomorrow's a better day. My horoscope says that, Thursday, but it's Wednesday. Yeah, but, we're going to have to hold off till tomorrow. Why? Now, wait, I understand that there are some folks with cabal and stuff like that. They will wait for certain days. But for you and me, does it really matter one day or 1 week or even a month difference? As long as whatever we're working on works out? I mean, I'm just saying. So, but the horoscope, because I don't read it, has no determination on my life. It cannot affect me because it's not that I don't recognize it, but I don't read it, therefore it can't. But the stars still move, the stars still align, the energy from the universe still comes, and I'm more aware of the universe, even though I don't know what my horoscope is, because I continue to accept these tiny little things that I keep picking up on. And my sky neighbors up there keep bringing up these really odd topics. But in this two words of switching it back and forth and slight deviation, right, or derivation thereof, that in mathematics, you got to have derivations, otherwise you quantum mechanics doesn't work and other things. So it's like, what? So yeah, I was going to read what the dictionary said about the words, but here's the point. It's a whole lot more involved. It's like, what? And it'll take you down a twisty little path with just those words. And um um and circumstance or circumstantial evidence or whatever. Uh, but so that can fit into a lot of places in our life, even on a daily basis. Well, I was outside and blah, blah, blah. And just by circumstance, my friend Randy shows up. He hadn't been here in a while. And we had a talk, whatever. And he's going to, as a favor to me and something else, he's going to take me to town next week, pay my taxes and do a little shopping. Great. And he was like, and he needs something to do, and was like, Dave, we don't have anybody but each other, kind of thing. And if you need to ride to town, I'll take you, because he's bored too. He wants something to do once in a while. And he used to be a truck driver, and he used to travel a lot. He used to be like Al. And but so when our circumstances change, our reality changes. So stay awake, stay aware that there's going to be some really strange stuff coming around. And we're going to have to deviate from what we consider the norm. And we're also going to have to reconsider for ourselves what that norm might be. Because here it comes, the circumstances will have changed. The energy vibes will have come in. Those of us who may or may not be affected. But by listening to the galactics and folks and stuff, and all of these people who are having all these things on this particular date, and it may be the 12/12. Okay, so here I am in the early morning. I was somehow psychically, get on here and let's have conversation. And they sent me this really odd, topic for possible discussion to get stoned with and to trip your mind into like, wow, this is a twisty situation where a lot of folks wouldn't give 2 seconds to even think about what those two words together or swapped or whatever could even mean at all on any level. But mathematicians wouldn't be able to get away. They couldn't exist without them. So in that, those words or a phrase in certain circles means a whole lot more than what I could discuss on the subject, or would want to, I think, as far as differentials and so forth. And anyway, but I will continue to pray that our circumstances for the future will improve. Now, sometimes you got to burn the weeds in the field at the end of the year to get rid of stuff and whatever. So stuff will sprout in the spring. In a month or so, it'll be really time to start burning off the woods in the back. Uh, Normally, folks will wait till just after deer season and burn their property. It'll start, somewhere in first after the first of the year down here. But unless it's real wet and circumstances change. But see, it can work into the conversation so easily. But of the stuff my folks have been able to like share with me as to like what's coming up, there are going to be anxious times for a lot of people simply because the circumstances will be changing. Those folks who are trying to navigate our futures, how about this one? But seriously, they're trying to guide what we're thinking, what we believe, and what we do. But for those folks who see those lines of energy and to see that they're trying to set up a new consciousness without Bob and the AI. This is in the quantum realm. They're doing this, right? Because they want Jesse Smollett's to be the topic of discussion. And so that has the topic of him and his verdict and so forth has taken on, guess what? It was quoted again, a life of its own. Okay. There's another invisible critter. They talk about it. You can't really see it. It's not really tangible, but it's there and they're creating it. And if we participate in any way, we're keeping that critter or that animal alive, even though we can't see it. The internet is part of it, but the consciousness of the thought exists without the internet. It exists in the ether. So things are getting, there are more telephone lines in the universe right now because there are so many people thinking on so many different levels, and there are so many different levels of thought that are being discussed and also twisted. Okay. And now the ETs are talking about 144,000 heading up into space or to go to planet Earth, the new Earth. Oh man, there was some folks that talked about it years ago. We're all going to be shifted. We're going to wake up and we're not even going to know we're on another planet. But it's not going to be polluted and it's not going to have this. I'm still waiting on that one. Okay. But there's 3 or 4 Earths that are identical. Really? Yes. Then where are they? How come there's still pollution in my yard? How come there's still pollution on the river in the backyard that floats downstream? How come there's still high levels of radiation in my area down here that shouldn't be? How come they're still spraying the skies? How come this ain't? I'm not on any other planet because all this stuff's still going on. We were promised this years ago by these folks. Hadn't happened. Still ain't seen it. I'm still hopeful. It'd be cool, be interesting. But now, as far as dimensional shifts and energy from the universe, that is one thing that is happening. Now, how it affects you and me will depend upon our circumstances, where we live, what our biological, some people have a higher pH, some people are type A blood, some are B, some are C, some are G, D, E, and F and G, right? Some people, may not even have blood, who knows? Or they've got a chemical running through or something, right? But all we can do is keep our friends and make some new ones if we can. And if people are being ornery, which I have brought up before and I will continue to bring up because there was a period earlier today, oh, when I saw the ants on the floor and my friend came over sort of at the same time and Duggar just would not get out of the way. and he would not mind me for nothing. Like, go over here and sit down. No, get right in my way. I'm trying to spray for ants. I'm trying to keep them spread. I'm trying. My friend comes over. I'm trying to do this, and Duggar's like he would not do anything. And I was like, dude, just sit down over here, because normally he would do it. He wouldn't. And I finally had to drag him outside. I kicked him out of the house. Whimper, meep, 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 and I'm like, but for a little short time, I was like, I ain't never got mad at him. But I was kind of pissed with him earlier today. I was like, dude, man, it just a simple thing like just sit down and stay there so I can spray for the ants. Just hold still. Wouldn't do it, and kept bumping into me and trying to knock me down. And I was just like, and another time I would have let him have it. I smacked him across the tail or the nose or something. And I looked at him and he was like, uh-oh, Dave's pissed. Because he was like, uh-oh. And I was like, dude. So I was like, okay, so go in the kitchen and be over there. Just stay out of here for a moment. Nope. By the time he'd cowered down, a half a second later, he was right underfoot again, trying to trip us both up. So I just said, okie dokie, and drug him outside, kicked him out. Hey, Gauza, how are you? And that tool, you're still here. Come back. I will burn the weeds for you. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Yep. Sydney, yeah. How are you? I had a friend of mine whose name was Sydney. Oh, Sydney. Oh, my friend Sydney. Anyway, but so it's almost 5 o'clock, right? Uh, 2 hours and 26 minutes, starting in the middle of the night. So it hasn't really been a long night, but it has been a long night because it's like 5:02 a.m. in the morning here, Eastern Standard Time. Down here in Southwest Georgia, it is uh, partly cloudy, sorta ish, and it's a balmy like 66 degrees outside. Um, and a really nice for December the 12th. Yeah, today is the 12th. You're in Melbourne, right? Um, and that um, I hope y'all Sunday is a good one. Is it Monday for you, Gaza, or is it Sunday? It's still Sunday, right? I'm thinking. I know it will be Monday before it's Monday here. But anyway, but see, that's another part. Like, so we're all different time zones and in different parts of the world. In Melbourne, south of the um, equator, etc. So, hey guys, you doing all right? It's good to see y'all. Um, so consequential deviations. Um, folks in Australia, because of where they live and their consequences, they've been under lockdown and keyed and thumbed down and stuff, and harassed. And a lot of other places, thank God, have not had to go through that kind of stuff. I mean, I keep praying for them folks in New York City, and that the folks there would just go, stop it, please, go away. But it is what it is. So, one day you think everything's cool, and the next day, all of our circumstances change. And so our lives are going to change, and we're going to have to deviate from the norm. I know I keep repeating it, but so what about gold and silver? Sell what you got, take the money and hide it, put it in a vault, put it in a thing, bury it in the backyard, put it in a Tupperware jar and put it in the freezer. But if anybody's got anything in the bank or any kind of gold or silver, you're not going to be able to trade it, not on a local level, Oh, the EMP thing is coming back into the news again, by the way. And they're like trying to sell it big time. Like, oh, this is really important. And we, after all these years, and this comments, and we should really pay attention to the science. Y'all heard that line before? And they still ain't done nothing. But, so, oh, and there's another asteroid coming in. Okay. Oh, and there's another, okie dokie. We're flying through space at thousands of miles per hour, slinging through the universe. Of course, there's other stuff out there. Okay. And, for some reason, oh, look at how many there are. Well, I got to say, we've been picking up near Earth objects and stuff. They've been able to, clock and trajectorize and theorize and so forth. And, there have been flybys. And so, but what happens to us? We talk about it, we observe it, and we speculate, right? But then there are folks who are still selling that everything's a tragedy. Now, don't get me wrong. Them folks that went through the tornado and stuff, that's a tragedy. Okay. Heavy storms, like I said, I've been through them, lived through them, had two tornadoes go over the house. One go when I lived in Tampa, one went right beside the trailer we were staying in. We were like two trailers over from where the tornado went by, and everything was devastated for like a half a mile. Um, and that tornado back in the day started in Tampa and went all the way across the state to Daytona. So they talk about this tornado and it being one of the longest. There was one way back in the day when I was in grade school back in the 60s that went from Tampa and skipped its way all the way over across the state of Florida to Daytona. So this may not have been the longest one, or whatever, but in my lifetime it's happened, and I was literally two doors down from where the devastation was, and because we had to cross over to get to school that day, um, early morning, holy mess, it was like you just didn't want to go outside. You opened up the door and looked outside and went, I can we stay home? But anyway, so but folks who are, wanting to sell destruction, I'm here most recently, especially, these people want God to come down and wreak havoc upon the earth. They want to see the destruction of mankind. They want to see the seas turn red with blood. They want to see the Jerusalem destroyed and the temple. They want, because it's in that book, and that they're not going to be happy unless all these prophecies come true. They just ain't going to have it. So for the Christians out there who are so infatuated with the prophecies of old and to this and to that and everything, just gonna have a little talk with Jesus, gonna tell him all about my problems. That's what you need to focus on. And forget about all this other nonsense. It Become friends with Jesus. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Understand the Christ consciousness, please. But stop all this foolishness, because um, this universe has got enough stuff in it for people to want to see Armageddon, because it's in the book. They want to see the end times because somebody prophesied it. They want to see death and destruction because, otherwise their own personal prophecies wouldn't come true, and their own preachings and so forth, and whatever money they've collected over the years trying to sell death and destruction, at how the Bible is being proved every day and how this is being done and how, okie dokie, there's always been turmoil. There will always be some kind of turmoil. There was something I was watching. It was a cartoon, actually, and it was like the good guys and the bad guys. And here's the interesting thing, and a lot of thought went into this by the writers. Is why I like the story. Was like good guys, bad guys. The good guys got together and they were trying to keep balance because in order for the universe, there had to be so many bad guys that they would let in, okay, to keep up a type of harmony, right? And as much as they didn't like to let the bad guys in, that in the universe, and it showed an hourglass, and it showed on the top there was red and on the bottom was green, and that the red would fall into the green, but the green didn't, it never filled up because it was actually flowing upwards back in to create this balance within in the sands of time. So but then what happened was the good guys devised this plan that if they killed and annihilated all of the bad guys, that then the universe would be in harmony. It would be great. And what happened was it almost brought down the destruction of these folks because they had tried to be too pure. They wiped out all the monsters. They tried to annihilate all the bad stuff, and they themselves ended up becoming bad because anybody who didn't agree with them in their annihilation of them for whatever, but that it upset the floor, the yin and yang. And so then there were bad guys within the good guys who said, no, we have to let some of these dinosaurs live. We have to let some of these monsters out, but we got to keep an eye on them. We just can't let them run loose, but we can't destroy them. They have their own place in the universe. And I was like, for this kids program, I was like, that was one hell of a deep subject. Okay. For the universe to be balanced, we have to control the evil and make sure that it doesn't take over and upset the balance of good and evil and of just the universe. But that if we annihilated all of the evil and tried to, get rid of every bit of it, that in itself could upset the balance of the universe as well. Ain't that some shit? Cause and effect, right? So, circumstances. So, the circumstance of this story and of this world, they thought if we kill off all the bad, it will have to be always good. And everybody will be live in peace and harmony, everything will be great. And what it did was it turned the humans evil because everything was hunky dory. And in somebody, there are some people that just have a bit of monster in them. Something keeps flashing over here, and there ain't nothing over there to flash. But anyway, we're I absolutely think that the fourth dimension is bleeding through. I personally believe that there's something dimensionally different, dimensional differentials. Yeah, that was a topic for another day too. My kid be watching some deep cartoons. And the science that's in them. I mean, not only are the topics of a series of 10 or 12 or 13 episodes or whatever, and the topic be like, what? The science that's in behind it, the philosophy. Now they might be talking about monsters and whatever, but the some of the lessons of well, we I became king to take to serve the people, and then by serving the people, he had to beat up on some because they were trying to steal from everybody else, and so by the end of it, he ended up looking as bad as the guy that they took over the country. And he said, but the circumstances in my kingdom have changed. I've tried to help my people out. And so, but in this cartoon story, right, here's this king trying, and he ends up being a bad son bitch because this had happened and that had happened, bad crops and this nation, and he had to put a stop to somebody beating up in one of his kingdoms or whatever. And then he ended up being the bad guy for the whole shebang. So, but anyway, yeah, sometimes just the smallest thing, a pebble in a pond creates ripples that go outwards in all directions. And so we just never know. So there are pebbles being thrown at us, dropped at us. I've heard some interesting information recently on one of these programs that they were discussing um, um, asteroids and stuff, and were several of us that said that comet thingy that came through, oh Mau thingy, that when it changed courses and started spinning, there were a lot of us astronomer types that said that ain't natural. That's made from someplace else. Now there's more evidence coming up from Harvard scientists and so forth that are bringing the subject of Oumuamua being artificial. Somebody made it, somebody threw this rock at us, like this comet that's coming in now. Are we sure what it's made out of? Are we sure, did somebody out in the Kuiper Belt and out in the edges of the solar system literally throw an asteroid at us? There were science fiction stories about that way many years ago, that there were war between the planets, and one of the best weapons was to send an asteroid, or on a trajectory towards one of the planets, and just let us do its thing. They didn't need to start a war or do a thing. They didn't have to bring a bunch of people or technology. No, they slingshotted an asteroid around the sun and headed it towards the planet, to do whatever devastation that it could on the planet, because the two planets were, warring. And it was sort of like why Mars lost its atmosphere. They threw somebody on another planet, threw a rock at it, thus the asteroid belt. Oh, and there was another planet there. Are you sure? Well, the stories say, I just asking, if you put all them little asteroids together, would they make a planet? And if so, just saying. My friends, I really do have to go. Go. It's almost, I'm going to take a hit with you and say my prayers, and I'm out of here. Okay. I would, I've been on here long enough and I've discussed this long enough, and I need to go to the toity. And so I'd rather not have to come back. Just say good morning and good night tonight. And happy 520. So I know it's been an obscure topic. It's been weird that they've been asking me to talk about these weird topics. We're going to have a conversation about that. But anyway, so just, from my shaman's journey, it's interesting to be able to notice these different types of life forms, thought patterns, and how they're interacting with you and me in the universe, and how you and I interact with them, and whether or not we choose to interact with them. So, my friends, I love you all. I do. Bat Tool and David Delaney, and I can't remember. Michelle, of course. I can't. I forgot who's further up. Um, I'll wave at you, but So I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Alex, if you're still out there, there's one. Bat Tool, absolutely. I continue to pray each and every day that when me and Duggar go outside to get our feet wet if it's rained. And we send our prayers to the universe that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And in that law of three, which is important to you and me, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, and the wisdom from the universe. And that you continue to reject the chaos that comes your way. And with these really weird and obscure conversations that I bring up from time to time, that you will glean a little something from it and will have at least shared with us, my craziness, good night to you, good morning, Michelle. Um, and that whatever your spiritual journey and life journey is, that everything does matter, but should, Gaza, absolutely. And Travis, I knew I literally had a brain fart. And Esty, you're absolutely welcome. Um, and I still don't have a clue. I'll let you know if I do as to why these folks are asking me to talk about this really strange, obscure stuff. But anyway, maybe it's just for the hell of it, right? Nothing else to do. But at least it's not something gory and deafing. And, for everything that we're aware of in our universe, it just makes us, easier for us to get along. If there are traps, if there are invisible traps or pitfalls or whatever, if somebody says, "Yo, Joe, careful, there's one of them invisible traps over there," you'd go, "Well, hey, thanks for the warning." That'd be up to you as to whether or not you avoided it, but at least somebody tried to warn. So some of these things, I know my guys up there are going, and we're going to keep talking to you, Noel, about this, and you're going to, and they're going to bug me about it. I just wish I knew why. So have a great day. Blessings to all. Yes, absolutely. And have a great Sunday. Do what you can. And for send a good prayer, not a long drawn out one, because we know that doesn't necessarily work as well. Use Crow as the messenger to send general healing to the folks who are affected by these storms this last night or so. Okay. So good morning, everybody. Good night. And Travis, adios. Mi amigos and mi amigas. Esti and for our friends down south in Melbourne, Gaza, and all you folks, be safe, okay? And we'll see you next time, okay? Have a great what's left of the weekend and try to be safe. Cheers. Thank you, Pearl, Delaney in the background, and you too. All right. Bye.